Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Inkwell Gamers podcast. We're going to have a little fun today with you all, building a deck that is an unconventional color combo. We feel like before the game was released, when all of the hype was occurring and before the meta was established, people were having a lot of fun just choosing whatever color combo they want with no preconceived idea for how that interaction was truly going to play out, and they just kind of went with it from there and built their decks. And we want to kind of take some time to have fun and just go back to that kind of mindset and just see what we can come up with, especially now that we have set 2 cards in play. Now understand, it might not be good because right now it's not a color combo we typically see getting used, and we'll talk about at the end of our episode why we feel that way. But for right now, let's just try to build something different, right? I think first and foremost, it's important to briefly cover some basic deck building principles. If you want to hear a more in-depth analysis of how to build a deck, we actually did cover this in one of our very first episodes. So feel free to go back and check it out. It might be episode 8 or 9, I think. But in the meantime, let's give a super high-level breakdown of what that might look like. Dalton, do you want to take us through these deck-building principles?
Yeah, I absolutely do. All right, Dana. So the first one, I think the most important thing is just figuring out what colors you want to try to play. And the most important thing that comes with that is knowing what each color is known for, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to go Sapphire, then you know you'll either be probably a ramp deck or an item deck. If you go Emerald, you know you're going to be a pretty aggressive color because that's the color that has the most high questing characters for cheap costs. Mm-hmm. So knowing what each color does is definitely important. From there, you have to figure out what archetype you want to be, whether that's an aggro deck, control deck, or a mid-range deck, maybe a combo deck if we end up having a bunch of different combo decks in the future. If you want a more in-depth explanation of those, go back to our Who's the Beatdown episode to hear more about that. But really what a lot of those decisions are based on is the current metagame, right? So knowing what you think you're going to play against should kind of determine what you're going to play. So next, once you know what colors you want to play, I think the most important thing is find the most powerful cards and interactions that you have in those colors and just start from there. For example, if you're going to play Sapphire, you know you're probably going to want Flavor Sham and Popsicle or Mickey Mouse and Fishbone Quill. Mm-hmm. Because you're either going to be doing the item thing or the ramp thing. Sometimes those things go well together too. Then you fill in with strong support cards, just really strong cards in that color, cards that will probably go into most archetypes. Rapunzel Gifted with Healing is a really good example for Amber, or we have Sad Beast and Steel Now, which is a card that literally goes in every Steel deck. After that, you need to consider your inkables versus your uninkables. There are a lot of different opinions onto how many of those you should play, given what your deck's trying to do and what your deck looks like. And then you should consider your cost curve or your mana curve, meaning you don't want all high cost characters because if you just don't play anything in the first 3 turns of the game, you'll probably fall way far behind. Mm-hmm. So now we got that covered, let's jump right into it. So the colors that we chose to do today, and we're going to build this deck on the fly, but we wanted to just kind of think of the colors beforehand. So we chose Sapphire and Amethyst. This is not a popular color combination. Each of those colors are represented in the metagame, but definitely not together.
Not together.
So Dana, what are Sapphire and Amethyst known for?
So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but Sapphire is known to be a ramping color. It's also known to have items. Amethyst is a lot of card draw. You do have some evasives in there. What else am I forgetting?
You have like a lot of the bounce synergies.
That's right. Yep.
Huge right now. And honestly, I think Amethyst is just good at doing a lot of things. You can be aggressive if you want to be, you can be controlling if you want to be. So it's a really diverse color.
Yeah, super versatile. All right, so let's dive in and just start picking at our cards here. So let's talk about the most powerful cards of Sapphire and Amethyst. I feel like, well, what kind of deck are we looking to build?
So I think a lot of the most powerful Sapphire cards, whether it's Flaversham and Popsicle or Mickey Mouse, Grammatala, One Jump Ahead, and Fishbone Quill, those kind of packages. So I kind of want to start with the ramp package just because I don't think Amethyst has enough good items to really support that kind of deck.
Yeah, I feel like they have a lot of powerful, Amethyst has a lot of powerful characters, and if we use the ramping ability of Sapphire, we can achieve like our Big Elsa and our Ursula and our Dr. Facilier. So I think that utilizing Sapphire for ramping is probably our way to go, and then seeing what we can do with Amethyst.
Yeah, and I think this could be definitely an interesting concept because ramping out into Ursula and Elsa a couple turns early is super strong. Those cards are already really good when you play them on turn 7 and 8. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think playing them ahead of curve will be really strong as well. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to go to Dreamborn here, and I think the first card I'm going to add is Mickey Mouse, Detective.
So I know that when we build decks on Pixelborn, we always start with 4 of a kind, and then we kind of wheedle down if we need to. So do you want to do that same strategy for here?
Yep.
Okay,
absolutely.
So we'll start off 4 Mickey Mouse Detectives.
Yeah, we'll probably just name off a bunch of cards, throw them in the deck, and then start narrowing all the cards down at the end. So other cards I said in that ramp list were Grammatala, so 4 of those, as well as...
What about One Jump Ahead? That's another ramp. That's important.
One Jump Ahead, and potentially I could even see Fishbone Quills.
All right.
Another really good card is also Belle, Strange but Special, so let's put some number of her in as well.
And when we finalize our deck list too, again, we're not saying that this is like something you should take to a tournament or anything by any means, but if you're interested in what the final deck list looks like, we'll put it on our Dreamborn and put the link for it in the episode description.
Absolutely. So, Dana, we have all of these ways to generate extra ink, right? So now we have to figure out what we want to do with that extra ink. So what do you think are some of the top end cards we should play?
I think we should look at Big Elsa and possibly Baby Elsa to ramp into. I think we should look at Ursula, just for starters. So Ursula, we'll put 4 of her in for now. Elsa Spirit of Winter, we'll do 4 of that. Elsa Snow Queen, we'll do 4 of that.
Yeah, and another high-end threat that I think is really good as well is Hades.
Yes.
Hades, incredibly powerful. I think we should just try to fit 4 of him in if we can as well. All right. So now we kind of have a lot of our top end. We have some of our low end. We probably need to fill in some of the lower end and the middle of the game kind of cards.
Yeah.
Right? So when we're looking, I think I kind of like some of the bounce cards in Amethyst as far, like they've just proven to be really good mid-range tools and threats. So I kind of want to go with Merlin just because he's the goat is just a generic strong card.
The goat is
the goat.
Potentially the goat.
Rabbit is also insanely good.
All right.
And then we can throw in some Madam Mims. We know the
Fox
is insanely strong, and we know Snake is also really good as well. So we're already at 52 cards, which is quite a bit. And I was thinking about some synergies just as I was scrolling through the cards right here. And I was thinking about some of the ways our deck, or some of the reasons why our deck might struggle. And it's because just by looking at it, we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24 uninkables, and like our deck isn't even filled out all the way. So one of the concepts I was thinking is playing cards like Cusco Wanted Llama, just because when you trade with that character, at least you're getting a card back, which could help you draw into more inkables.
All looking for that card advantage, which I know that you got me to start keeping my eyes open for things like that. What is going to give you a card advantage over your opponent, for sure.
Yeah, so I think along with Grammatala and Cusco, just having those 2-drops that can help you find more ink, especially when your deck is looking to be a little light on that, is going to be really strong.
What about Hey Hey?
Hey, hey, this... So I was thinking about that too, because this is another card along the same lines as those, because if it's banished in a challenge, it just goes right back to your hand, so you can use it as an ink as well. So we could put 4 of those in here.
Okay.
It's even better at trading than what Cusco is.
We need some 1-drop. So looking at our curve that we were talking about, we have a lot of 2s and 3s and 4s. We skip 5 and 6s, and we don't have 1s. So looking at our 1s, I mean, we have pretty generic. Are we looking for 2 2s or 1 3s? So you have Chip as a 2 2. You have Flounder. You have Olaf as a 1 3. So just maybe some sort of combination of any of those at any quantity.
Yeah, I think we'll just start with Chips here and maybe some Flounders, just because, like, this deck isn't looking like it needs... Actually, you know what? I have an idea. Alright, so actually, I want to go to Olaf, and I'll tell you why in a second, if I can find him on this. Ooh, we even forgot Friends on the Other Side. That's a card that we're going to play as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't forget about that one. Olaf, right there. Alright, so just by looking at this, I think a card that could be really strong in this deck is actually Crab Merlin as well. Do you want to guess why, Dana?
Because I feel like both of these colors aren't really well, I guess with the exception of the new bounce cards, both of these colors really don't have super strong challengers, and so having him give your other characters challenger is pretty strong. And yeah, I think that's why.
So that's part of it. And when you look at a lot of our other 2-drops, we have Grammatala, which is not good at challenging, but replaces itself. We have Cusco, which is not good at challenging, but replaces itself when you draw a card. Grammatala goes to your inkwell. And then we potentially also have Hey Hey, which just returns to your hand when it's banned in a challenge. What all of these cards really want is the ability to challenge and take out an opposing character. And if you can set it up so you play a Cusco Wanted Llama on turn 2, and then a Merlin on turn 3, so you trade into their 2-drop, but then you also
Get the ability
of it as well. You're not just like cycling around Cusco to draw the card, you're actually using it to trade into your opponent's card, and that's where you gain that card advantage.
Yeah, you're actually being productive.
Yeah, you're not just trading it in to get that 1 damage and then drawing a card back. You're actually able to make use of the characters on board themselves instead of losing that board position.
I like it.
And the same thing kind of goes for Olaf as a 1/3. It's going to be able to challenge into a lot of the 2-drops that it just normally can't with the Challenger +3 from Merlin Crab as well. So Merlin Crab seems like, as long as we have Cuscos and Talas, and heck, even with Mickey Mouse, seems like an excellent fit. Just making use of these bodies that are generally just not very good.
Right. Good deal. So, all right, we have just Are we okay with just having Olaf as our only one drop, or do we want to have another one drop in? Maybe a 2/2, or is that enough?
I think we might be okay having Olaf as our only one. If Sapphire had a 1/3, I might be interested in it, but they don't. So, yeah, I think Olaf is okay.
Okay, cool. So looking now, we're still missing 5 and 6 cost cards. So what are our options here for good ones? I think there's that one Sapphire Maleficent that quests for 3, I think, and then she has a willpower of 6, so she's pretty hard to get off the board. I think we could have her in there.
Yeah, I definitely was thinking that she could be an option as well. Alright, so yeah, I definitely think this is a decent option, just a good threat.
Maleficent uninvited.
Not the easiest to get off the board.
Yeah.
I also think that a card that we probably need is Let It Go. The only real removal that we do have is Hades. Elsa's pretty temporary. While I think Crab with a lot of these 2-drops is good at removing characters off the board, I think we need something that's a little more consistent, and Let It Go is really good at doing that.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it's inkable, and you can sing it, so essentially, you could sing it for free.
Yeah, it's
nice.
A really strong tempo play.
For sure.
As far as maybe 5 and 6 cost cards go, I think that might be enough. The only other cards that I might consider wanting, just by looking, is Jetsam, just as a way to challenge evasive characters, and then Maleficent Sorceress is just a generically good
Card
3-drop, right?
Yeah.
And again, with Merlin Crab, you can make use of the body that you maybe couldn't have made use before. Oh, Yzma. Yzma's actually a really good one as well.
The Scary Beyond All Reason. Do we want to have the smaller one to shift? Or, I mean, I think she's good enough to have in your deck even if you don't have the smaller card to shift her onto.
I do agree. I think Yzma just by herself is very good. So I think just having her as a way for emergency removal, but also as a way to turn something like Olaf or Hey into real cards later in the game, more cards later in the game for yourself is also really strong as well. Mm-hmm. So,
all right, we are at 92, and so we need to start whittling down. I think we should start off by picking out the cards that are a non-negotiable. We have to keep them at 4 for sure. I think Mickey Mouse Detective is one of our main ramps. We definitely need 4 of that. 4 of your Gramatalas and 4 of your 1 jump aheads, right?
Yeah, I could see going down to 3 1 jump aheads, but 3 or 4 most likely.
All right. What are ones that we wouldn't mind cutting? What about Fishbone Quill?
Yeah, that's one I was thinking about. I think it is a really strong card, but I think the issue that we have is that we're not drawing enough cards to generate enough ink for it, so I am definitely fine with cutting it.
And even looking at our list right now, we have a ton of 3-drops, and that it's just...
Yeah, it just takes up the spot.
It takes up that spot, yep.
Yep, okay. So, along with Fishbone Quill, this is tough. I actually think we could potentially cut some Bell Strange but specials as well. Mm-hmm. Just because, again, we're not playing like a whole new world where you can flood the board of ink or characters and then refill your hand and just keep generating that ink advantage. So I could see going down to maybe 2 of her. She's pretty good 4-drop anyway.
Mm-hmm. What about cutting Ursula down to 2 or 3?
Yeah, I could see cutting 1 Ursula. I kind of want to keep 4 Hades, just because I think that might be the best expensive card. I mean, Elsa's obviously really good, but she costs 8, so I can see cutting 1 of her as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so just now looking at the list, I can see cutting a couple Yzmas. I just don't know if we'll need all 4 of those. Jetsam, I do think we want some ways to challenge some evasive characters. I don't think we need 4 of those either, though. All right, so, ooh, man, I love building decks. This is fun. All right, so now looking at our cost curve, we have 80 cards. We only cut 12 somehow. Still need to cut about 20 more. We have 24 3 drops, so we'll probably need to cut some amount of those. Right now we only have 22 inkables though, so we're getting back up.
I mean, I know I know that a lot of people say no more than 12 to 15, but you and I have been pretty vocal about we rock sometimes like an 18 uninkable card deck. So yeah, I think if you build your deck right, you can get away with it for sure. So the number that we're at right now isn't too far off from where we normally play competitively anyway.
Yeah, just depend. Like, if your deck's game plan is to play a really long game, which this deck is going to have that game plan, then it is okay to play a few more uninkables because you're just going to play more turns than average, and you'll draw more inkables over the course of that time, and that is kind of in combination with just drawing more cards. If you have ways to draw more cards or put more ink into your inkwell, I think it's okay to play a few more uninkables as well. And this deck, I think, does both at a pretty good rate. So
I feel like looking at it right now, I almost wonder if we cut Elsa Snow Queen down 1 or 2.
yeah, I was thinking of maybe just cutting her completely. I don't think she's super needed. I think she might be the worst 3-drop that we have. And
Again, Big Elsa is good enough on her own
Yeah.
to where you don't really need to shift her to make her worth still playing.
right, you just play Big Elsa and profit. I kind of want to cut either the 4 Cuzcos or the 4 Hey Heys.
Why not? Poor Kano, 2 of each.
Because I think one's probably better than the other, but I'm not sure which one.
What about, okay, let's just do the Hey Heys.
We'll do the Hey Heys.
Yeah.
I agree with you, for what it's worth. Okay, so I think we can probably cut down on some number of these 3-drops. What is the 3-drop you want to cut down on, Dana?
It's tough. My eyes draw to Maleficent Sorceress, but I like her card draw. Oh, tough. I don't know. What's your gut telling you?
Nah, that's the one I'd probably cut down 1 or 2 of. The reason being is that I think Madame M. Fox is insanely powerful. Merlin Crab is kind of what our whole early game is about, right?
Yeah, the strategy for...
Yeah, just like playing a taller Cuzco and then using Crab to trade. And then we have Mickey Mouse, which is one of probably the better cards in the deck as it is anyway.
Right. Okay, so we'll cut 2 of her. And then what else should we be cutting? Let's see.
So I think that we could probably cut 1 or 2 Let It Goes. It's a really good card, but because we have Yzmas and Hades, and hopefully we control the early game with Crab Merlin, I hope we don't need it as much. Another card I think we can cut 1 of is 1 Jump Ahead. We already have a bunch of ramp spells, and this one being an uninkable one and not a character that trades well means it's probably a little bit worse than the others. So that puts us down to 67. We are right there.
So close. 7 more. Where are we going to find them?
Where are we going to find them? All right. So honestly, this does not look like the best Bell Strange but Special deck. I really don't want to, but I just don't know if we're generating enough cards until I would play it to know if we really need her or not. I think she's also the one kind of threat that just doesn't do anything in the mid game super well. Like Rabbit, Merlin at least draw some cards. Merlin Goat is good at trading. Bell Strange but Special doesn't really do any of that.
You have to wait for her to... She's kind of slow in that regard.
She doesn't really have a big impact on the board, and I also think Maleficent Uninvited is also kind of in that same boat, not having a huge impact on the board, but at least this one quests for a lot and can brawl a little bit, so I think we can get rid of some of the Bell Strange but specials.
Okay. Should we, hear me out, do we need 4 Hades or should we go down to 3?
I really like 4 Hades just because it's so good at interacting. I think Hades is probably just one of the better cards in the game, so I kind of want to keep 4. Maybe we can go down to 3 though, just to test it out. So that's 64. We need to cut 4 more cards. I think what we could do, Maleficent Uninvited is a really good card, but I don't know if just having mid-game quester is really what this deck needs. I think it's either wanting to challenge on the board or interact via Hades or Elsa or Yzma or draw some cards with Goat, right? I think this is kind of the last thing this deck wants to do, so I can see just cutting these as well.
Okay. All
what
together?
Do you think? Yeah.
That's fine. That actually, what is that, 60 now? Are we at 60? Oh.
We are at 60.
You know, I didn't think we were going to make it.
It was looking sketchy when we had 90.
Yeah, for sure.
Hard to
So,
cut down.
going through really quick, our cost curve is looking a little bit better now. For our 3 drops, we have 14, we have 18. 2 drops, we are at 15. So, much better now. Our uninkables, we're at 20. That's pretty high, but you have to consider too, we are playing a ramp deck. So that might take care of itself with our Mickey Mouse Detective and One Jump Ahead. Maybe we would be putting whatever that face down card is, maybe it is an uninkable and we luck out. So we have to kind of, I guess, consider that a little bit. But going through our list really quick, we have ended up with 4 Olafs, 4 Cusco Llamas, 4 Madame M Snake, 4 Grammatala, 4 Fox, 2 Sorceress, 4 Crab, 4 Mickey Mouse Detective, 2 Jetsam, 4 Goat, 4 Rabbit, 2 Yzma, 3 Ursula, 3 Hades, and 3 Elsa Spirit of Winters. Our songs, we have 3 One Jump Aheads, 4 Friends on the Other Sides, and 2 Let It Goes. How are we feeling about this?
So I am actually really interested in trying this deck out because I legit want to see how good Crab Merlin plus like Grammatala and Cusco are at controlling the early game while also letting you find those extra ink sources through Cusco's card draw or just Grammatala's ability itself. So I am really curious. Merlin Crab also helps cards like Maleficent Sorceress be relevant, Mickey Mouse Detective be relevant.
Because I feel like often with those cards, you play them, you get their ability right away, and then you just really don't have anything to do with them. Like, so often I'm like, man, Mickey Mouse is great for the ramping, but after that, I can't do anything with him because he's not strong enough to challenge.
Mm-hmm. You might quest once or twice, and it just gets banished into exile, and you're just kind of sad because it didn't really have a board presence, right?
Right, for sure. So, although we're very intrigued with how this deck is going to work, should we kind of talk about why we might not be seeing this color combo?
So, for one, I don't think we see this color combo that much because, I mean, if you look at this specific deck list, like, all the Sapphire cards are just, like, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Sapphire cards in this deck.
Yeah, it's pretty much a splash of Sapphire.
Yeah, so, and they're just the Sapphire cards that you would see in every Sapphire deck. Grammatala, Mickey Mouse Detective, Hades, One Jump Ahead, and Let It Go. There aren't that many other Sapphire cards that are very common. There's Flaversham and Popsicle and Fishbone Quill. Besides that, maybe I guess the 2-cost Corella as well because it can challenge evasives. But besides that, Sapphire is just not a very deep color. So that's really why you don't see much Sapphire at all. Beyond that, with these 2 colors specifically, Amethyst doesn't have any item synergies, so it doesn't work with Sapphire on that axis. And all the really powerful cards in these two colors are uninkable. Whether it's Mickey Mouse, Ursula, Hades, Elsa, they're all uninkable. Rabbit Merlin. Like, we have, what do we say, 20 uninkables?
Yeah.
We have 20 uninkables, and we're just trying to play the most powerful cards in these two colors. Like, if you pair either of these colors up with Ruby, a lot of Ruby's best cards, besides Be Prepared, are all inkable. Mm-hmm. So you just have a little more consistency with, your ink in the early game. Besides that, it also does not look like a deck that can beat really aggressive go wide strategies because it doesn't have grab your swords or be prepared, and I think those are some really good tools to beat those decks. This is a deck that can definitely beat, like, let's say your opponent just plopped down one big character one after another. I definitely think that if your opponent was just playing like their own Ursulas into their own Elsas kind of a thing, this is probably a deck that's really good against that, because you have Hades, you have Let It Goes, you have Yzmas, you have the Merlin Crab to help trade up into those things. But yeah, it's not going to deal with a wide board very well either.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be interested to see. We should do some testing. Maybe you could do like a video playing this out and testing it, seeing if it has any legs to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. I think it looks really interesting. It looks really fun. And then I'll probably end up making some tweaks in that video as well. So that'll be a good experience as well.
Cool. Well, I think that about does it for today. It was interesting. I think we should do another one, but do another unconventional one, maybe Ruby Steel or something like that, because we never see Ruby Steel either. So
yeah, not very common with that one either.
But we always like to challenge the status quo.
That's right.
So
we're rebels.
We're rebels. All right. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Feel free to check it out. Like I said, I'll put the link in the episode description. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you like what we picked, if you would have picked something different that we might not have been seeing. So we would love to hear from you guys. But in the meantime, we hope you have a good week, and we will talk to you next week.
Appreciate you guys. See you next week.